Hi there, welcome back to another video. My name is Monica of Millie and Monica over on Poshmark, where I am a full-time seller. And today I have a unique video because I'm going to be talking about how I handle Poshmark cases, return requests, and those lower star ratings and negative feedback. So if you are at all interested in reseller related content, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and of course give this video a thumbs up. So this is a video I've been wanting to film and do for quite a while, but to be honest, it's kind of nerve-wracking. It's kind of nerve-wracking to share those mistakes that you make and how you handle them, because I kind of fear that maybe you won't agree with how I handle the situation. But at the flip side, I know that this could be really, really helpful to some of you, because shopping online is emotional from a buyer standpoint, but also like selling online can be very emotional too, because we get so invested as sellers into taking the time to find and source the item, taking the time to clean and present the item, provide measurements, to list it, and we take the time to, get it shipped out properly and timely. And so when that case is opened or a return is open, it can be just like devastating, right? It can be just so emotionally draining, and there's money involved. And yeah, so I want to talk about how I handle cases, kind of how I've evolved my strategy or method for handling it over the years. And I think it's just always important to think about the buyer as well, because buying clothing, whether you're buying it in a store or you're buying it online, is emotional as well for them, because maybe they had an idea of how something would fit, and then there's we get into the body image stuff, and if something just doesn't fit at all, and the money they've invested. So anyways, I have some notes here on this because I wanted to make sure I get really to the point and of what I do to help you. So I actually had a couple cases opened this past week, and there's like a little fly flying around. So anyways, I had a couple cases open this week, and I thought, okay, I'm finally going to sit down. I'm going to film this video for you. Anyway, I just want you to know that I've sold over 4,000 items on Poshmark. So I have definitely seen my fair share of cases. And it's truly, Poshmark calls it cases, which just makes it feel icky, but it should be like thought of as a return, like a customer return. We return things all the time. Like I literally returned garland, like Christmas decor garland, to Joann's yesterday because I didn't like it. Like I thought I would like the color and I thought I would like the design of it, but once I brought it home and in my space, I didn't like it. So I returned it. Returns happen in any retail situation, but Poshmark calls it a case, and it just sounds so icky. It feels like you're going to jail. Like I've never gone to jail, but I feel like I'm going to Poshmark jail as soon as that notification hits. And anyways, it's just a part of selling, right? Returns are a part of selling, and so I try to think of it that way, and I try to turn my mindset around and think, I've sold over 4,000 items. I really haven't had that many returns or return requests or cases opened. So for me, it's been about learning to manage my emotions and think about what I know and how to remain professional. And when I think about the customer, how do I want to make them feel? So I've come up with kind of what I call my posh case sandwich response. And so I'm going to be sharing how I respond to basically all my cases. And I basically truly receive two type of return case requests. And the first one is like I missed some sort of flaw. Maybe it was a stain, maybe it was something that I missed. Okay, so something that I missed that went wrong. Maybe this is what actually happens to me more frequently than not with shoes is that maybe I photographed the right size, I put the right size in the description, but then I tagged the shoe wrong. So maybe it was a size 7.5 and maybe I marked it as a 7 and then a case was opened up, and that is my fault. So that's one type of case where, I as the seller did something wrong. And then the second sort of type of case I often have against me is when a buyer opens up a case saying that the item is too small or it's too big or it just doesn't fit. So those are my main two types of cases. So I have kind of like a sandwich for each of those types, and I feel like the sandwich is really, really easy to use with any type of case I have opened up, whether the buyer is claiming something that's just kind of ridiculous, or if it's just as simple as this doesn't fit. So we'll go into it. So a sandwich, if you kind of think about it, you have your bread and you have whatever in the middle. And so that's why I call this a sandwich, and you'll see that in a moment. But really, once I thought about what I knew from past experience as a teacher and being professional, I thought to my parent-teacher conferences, and I thought about how did I talk to parents about their kids. And I would sandwich it. You tell them something really good and positive, and then you kind of tell them about something maybe their kid needs to work on, and then you end it with something really positive. And that's just like best practice, I feel like, when you're giving any sort of constructive feedback. I just took what I knew, and applied it to cases. And so it really helps me remain stable emotionally and know that this is just part of the process. I know how to respond. I can respond quickly and timely, and know that I am still being professional. So that's why I do this. And so the first part of my sandwich is to apologize. And some people will say, you shouldn't ever apologize and blah, blah, blah. But honestly, apologize. It's okay. It's okay. So I always start with something like, I'm sorry to hear you're unhappy with your purchase. Because truly I am. I feel bad when someone's not happy with their purchase. So I start with that. And then I go into a fact or statement. So then I usually, in the case that I messed up and maybe I put the wrong size in for some reason, I will say something like, I definitely overlooked that flaw. And then I'll do another statement. And this next statement is really, really important in my opinion, because in most cases, don't think that most buyers know that the seller, in this case me, doesn't have the ability to just give them a refund. And so I always say, Poshmark will be reviewing your feedback and will be sending you the return info shortly. Now, this statement is definitely catered to if I made the mistake. So I want them to know that Poshmark is involved in this process, not necessarily, I can't send them a return label right on the spot. I don't have the ability to do that. So I always put in this type of statement. And I'm going to say it again, and I'll have it over here on the screen. So Poshmark will be reviewing your feedback and will be sending you return info shortly. So I always want to throw that in there and just kind of take some of the weight off of me, so that they're not wondering why I'm not refunding them or whatnot. And then to end the sandwich, again, I go back with another apology, and it might seem overkill, but it seems to work. And so in the end, I'll say something like, again, my apologies for the inconvenience, because it is an inconvenience, and I want that person to know, that buyer to know that I sympathize with them, or I empathize with them. I realize that they've been inconvenienced, their time, their money, etc. So that's how I handle the first situation if it's on me, if it's my fault and I want to take ownership of that. Yeah. So the next situation where the buyer is claiming it doesn't fit, or it's too small, or it's too big, or whatever, I structure it very similarly. So I still start with the same, like, I'm sorry to hear you're unhappy with your purchase, because again, you want them to feel heard, and you want them to know, like, yeah, this is not great. And then I go in with my fact or my statement again, and I will say something like, the item was tagged size small and was listed as such. And if measurements were provided, I might even say, and measurements were provided. And then I'll go in with that other statement, fact, however you want to say it, that Posh will be reviewing their feedback and will let you know if the return is approved. And so I word it just a little bit differently for that situation, because I want them to know, again, like, this is not in my ability to approve. Like, Poshmark is involved with this process, and so that's why I throw that statement in there. To me, it's really helpful. Just in educating them about how Poshmark works, because oftentimes I feel like they're newer buyers and they just don't know. And then I ended again with that sandwich of, again, I am sorry that you aren't happy with your experience. And so I might word it just slightly differently, but again, it's like, I want them to know that I am truly sorry that they're unhappy with this experience. And that's kind of how I leave it. I usually don't respond again. Like, I usually don't, and maybe in certain situations I might. But I do want to talk about a little bit of an exception, because I've been toying around with how I handle this. So I've definitely handled most of my cases in the past year and a half this way, with this sandwich style response. But in the past couple months, I've had, I think, 3 cases that I have not responded to. And I've been trying this out because I've heard other resellers say they don't respond. And I've not responded to 3 that were due to fit. Okay. And it's actually gone really well. So the last one that was this week, so I think I mentioned in the beginning that I had 2 just this week. One was my fault and the one was fit. And so I responded to the one that was my fault in the manner in which I described. And then the second one, that literally they got a pair of shoes and they said they're too small. And in that situation, I didn't respond. And I could have with my sandwich style, but I was really curious to see what would happen. And what happened was, with me not responding, the case was declined. It was declined in less than 24 hours. So in less than a 24-hour turnaround time, that case that I didn't respond to was literally declined. My money was deposited because I had tagged them as the size that they were. There was no evidence that they were wrongly tagged. They were just claiming they were too small. And so the reason I'm trying this out is because I was curious to see if the case turnaround time would be quicker if I didn't respond. And in the 3 cases that I haven't responded to due to fit, they have been literally like declined almost immediately by Poshmark. And so I do feel like a little weird, I guess, on the professional front. Like, I'm not sure how professional it is to not respond to those cases, but at the same time, I do also want to protect myself and my time. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still playing around with that. Let me know down in the comments how you respond to those who are claiming items don't fit, because I'm just curious. But yeah, so that has worked, but I still like my sandwich style, and I think it's really helpful for almost like every situation that comes up that I've had come up, because sometimes you get thrown some wonky ones, and I just like to remain as professional as possible, and also guard my emotions, because I had one particular case that spurred this movement and this change like a year and a half ago that just left me emotionally drained. It left me unfocused for hours, And someone opened up a case against fit, and I responded, and maybe I responded too emotionally, and then the buyer was extremely emotional and was just upset that I couldn't model the item to show the proper fit, and even though measurements were included, they were just really upset. And I felt very body shamed because I had literally stated that I couldn't model the item, and it just went on and on and on and on, and it just should not have gone on in that sense. So I was really motivated to come up with a strategy to help in those types of situations, and I definitely think this has helped me, and I hope that it can help you. But similarly, I also want to talk about how I handle negative feedback on Poshmark. And when I'm saying negative feedback, I'm talking about like a 4, 3, 2, or 1 star review. And I've heard a lot of people say, I think on Instagram, that if they receive anything less than 5 stars, they reach out to the buyer to ask what they could have done to make their experience better, etc. And to be honest, once I went full time and I was starting to do a lot more volume, I really stopped reaching out in those lower star reviews, because I just felt like they're pretty far and few between. And some people you're never going to please, like quite literally. Like some people are impossible to please, and some people also might think that a 4-star review is a really good review. So I've stopped reaching out, with an exception of 1-star reviews based on one particular thing. So I have a handful of 1-star reviews, and almost all of them are because of the same thing. And that is that they never received their item, and which is terrible. Like, that is terrible. So I think in almost every 1-star review I've gotten, the buyer has left a comment, never received the item, and something, something, something. And I am just like flabbergasted, because of course tracking has shown that the item was delivered. They will wait, the 3 days have gone by, and then I get the payment, which that's how Poshmark works. And then at some point I get this 1-star review with them saying they never received it. And it's just so bizarre. In that situation, I do 2 things. I email Poshmark and I say, hey, this buyer has left a 1-star review because they never received their item. And it's not that I'm worried about the 1 star, I'm worried that they didn't receive their item. And for whatever reason, the buyer didn't reach out to Poshmark themselves. And then what I do, the second thing I do, is I reach out to the buyer and I send them a message and I say, I'm so sorry you didn't receive your item. Please email Poshmark support, because they need to hear from you. And that's what I tell the buyer. Like, they need to hear from you that you didn't receive it. Because again, if they hear from me saying that they didn't receive it, they don't know. Like, that doesn't prove anything. They need to hear that from the buyer. So I reach out in that situation and let the buyer know that they need to email Posh support to get refunded. Like, they do have insurance on these packages, and for whatever reason, I'm guessing that the tracking shows that it was delivered because maybe it was wrongly delivered. Maybe a neighbor's ended up with it and never tracked down the proper owner, or whatever the reason. It's really, really important that the buyer reach out to Poshmark, because Poshmark is the only one that can actually refund them in that situation. So yeah, otherwise I don't respond to negative feedback. And that's just kind of my approach. And I know that not everyone's going to agree with that, or maybe they do something different. But this is, customer service is only a small part of my business, and so many other things take so much time. And a part of me feels like, Poshmark takes 20% for a reason. And part of the reason is that they handle cases and, they're involved in this. So I kind of feel like I leave some of that to them, so that I can manage all the other pieces that I'm juggling. So yeah, let me know if you have different methods, if something else works for you, down in the comments. I'd be really excited to hear how you handle some of these situations. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up, and of course I will see you next time.